Flocks have been out camping. Winter was long, cold, dull. It seems that they were in danger of forgetting what spring was like. There it was. Flocks have now to the camp. It won't be long now, and this perfect setting will become the birthplace of the April.
Morning, fire control.
Yes, I'd like to report a possible fire.
Give me the location, please. Well, our address is 1-1. Maybe I can tell you. It's near Murray Hill. Okay, is it close to Russell Lake?
Good. I have a callback number, please.
55557.
This time it was a good citizen who noticed the smoke and called in the warning. Another time it could have been an air patrol, or even the department's own people out checking their territory. No matter how the call comes in, it's just the first step in a much larger team effort required to stop the April fire. Fast action is called. There have been no real April showers this year. Conditions favor the fire, not the crews who'll be fighting it. There are a number of influences on a wildland fire. Weather conditions are obvious in the case of the April fire. Brisk wind, relatively dry early spring, low wintertime moisture conditions. The morning sun has already removed what moisture had accumulated from the dew. The ground, too, has been warmed by the sun, adding eddies and flows of warm air to the atmospheric winds. In short, the fuels and weather conditions are perfect for a wildland fire. Smoke can tell a lot about a fire to an experienced observer, not just the direction, but the intensity of the fire, the kinds of materials it's burning. They're there, written in the smoke. The chief alerts his crew to the situation they'll face. Despite the spring bite in the air, they know from experience that their lighter weight protective clothing, often Nomex brand, will be all they need, and won't wear them out before they start work, because they're heavier turnout gear minded. They have plastic hard hats or lightweight helmets, protective eyewear, and gloves as well. An injury, even a splinter or an object in the eye, isn't a trivial matter out here. As the crew approaches the April fire, they too begin their size up of the scene. From the way the fire has spread, it is possible to have a pretty good idea where it started, how big it is now, and a general picture of where it's going. Care should be taken, though, to protect the area of probable origin for later investigation. A scout will travel up the right flank of the fire, across its head, and then the left flank and back to the command post. As he reports in from the perimeter of the fire, he notes any property that may be in danger, types of combustible materials the fire may encounter in its path, possible obstacles to fighting the fire, and the types of hand tools the crew will use. Also, the scout should report possible anchor points, such as roads. The goal is to stop the forward progress of the fire. Since the head is usually the hottest and fastest spreading part of the fire, the crew will start initial attack on this part of the fire. They will be using what is called the indirect method of attack. They will later be concentrating their efforts on the flanks and rear of the fire, using the direct method of attack. Finding a natural anchor for the attack, a section road, a stream, rock outcropping, is important to prevent the fire from hooking around and endangering personnel while the crew is constructing their line. The line itself will be cleared down to mineral soil and only as wide as it needs to be. There's no sense in building a superhighway when the rule of thumb calls for a line that's twice as wide as the available fuel. There'll be a total of 8 firefighters on this crew, a crew boss, 7 others. Fires, other situations, other locations. might require more people on a crew, even more crews. The locator follows the trail marked by the scout on his initial setup of the fire, looking for indicators that the crew is in the right place. At least one crew member will carry a cutting tool, usually a Pulaski tool. Other crew members will carry fire rakes, sometimes called council tools, with an additional two crew members carrying broom rakes in case they encounter rocky areas to remove the tinder and debris that provides a fire with rapidly igniting fuel. It will be their responsibility to make sure that the fire's path is ringed with a sufficiently wide mineral soil barrier. One crew member will have a shovel, digging and scraping potential sources of fuel, as well as for fighting small spot fires. Burning out, one crew member will carry a firing device, either a drip torch or fusee. Finally, one or two crew members will carry a backpack tank for small spot fires and patrol. Members maintain adequate spacing as they progress toward the fire line, and they pace themselves. It's this kind of cross-country traveling that again points up the need to be fully equipped for fighting wildfires, with protective clothing instead of standard turnout gear, stick non-conductive hard hats instead of heavy metal, comfortable leather-toed work boots instead of steel-toed rubber or cowboy boots, proper gear, proper procedures, proper training. These are the things that can make fighting wildfires a challenge or a chore. The axe is often handled by the line locator, and thus is usually the first tool employed on the line. It is used to remove limbs and fell small trees. Sharpening an axe, or any other cutting tool, are safety precautions. Wear those gloves. It's not wimpy to want to keep all 10 fingers in good working order. It's smart. Skis thrives on dirt. It's just the tool for getting rid of almost any kind of vegetation that the axe hasn't gotten. Up or below, a Pulaski is a very versatile tool. Also on the Pulaski, one edge is used above ground, one edge is used in the soil. Check the handle to make sure it's solid and splinter-free. Check where the handle and head join. Would you bet your hard hat that the joint is secure? Put on your safety glasses and gloves. Get out that file guard. It's time to sharpen your Pulaski. The edge you dress is different than the axe, but just as important, because it has to stand up to a lot more abuse. Using a Pulaski or any cutting tool requires that you know where you and the other crew members are. Check to make sure you have a clear path to swing in. Make sure your feet are planted solidly. Don't overextend yourself or the tool. Remember, you're probably going to be out here for a while, so don't try to clear the entire fire line yourself. Remember, this is a team effort. The fire rake is a cross between a garden rake and a cutting tool. Its main purpose in life is to remove the fuel from a fire. Most of the time you use a fire rake to move the fuel outside your line as you clear the ground down to mineral soil. Move it outside and scatter it. Don't pile it up. There may be some occasions, however, such as when you're dealing with high-hazard fuels, when you may have to clear the fuel materials to the inside of the burn line. Usually, this will only occur if you're building a wide line through light fuel and the burn area is close by. Once you know, don't create a pile of fuel inside the line. Scatter it. In any case, though, you will want to inspect a fire rake as thoroughly as any other tool. Check the handle to ensure it's in one piece and splinter-free. Check for broken or missing teeth or worn rivets. Get out those goggles, gloves, and file guards and sharpen the cutting edges. Then, when you're out in the field with a fire rake, remember you're part of a team. Your goal is to clear a line down to mineral soil. The most efficient way to do that is called the progressive one-lick method. Take one or two licks with your fire rake and move on. The crew member next in line takes his licks, which will clear the ground a little more than you did. The crew member next in line will take one, and before you know it, the line will be clean. The broom rake can be used to supplement the fire rake or replace it in rocky terrain. It doesn't have the cutting edge of the fire rake, but it is very efficient at fuel removal and line improvement. If you have a broom rake with a collapsing handle, check that the mechanism, particularly the locking mechanism, is in good working order. With a wooden handled broom rake, you'll want to check to make sure the handle is in good condition, solid and splinter-free. In actual field use, the broom rake and the fire rake are used the same, removing light fuel, usually outside the fire line. Fire shovels allow you to dig out possible fuel sources, spread mineral soil to low fuel temperature, remove oxygen, or just help with fire line construction and maintenance. Their sharpened edges make them easy to use with an angled cutting motion, in addition to digging as you would with a standard shovel. As with other tools and handles, you'll want to check for cracks or splinters, even if it's made of something other than wood, such as fiberglass. Here, too, you'll want to use proper safety precautions to dress the shovel's edge. And when you're out in the field using a fire shovel, use your arms and legs. Don't use your back. This is where your weight training pays off, because you and the crew will last a lot longer if you place as little strain on your back muscles as possible. The crew member with the firing device must obviously be very careful when using these tools. The drip torch or the fusee can be used to burn fuels in the path of the fire, on the inside of the fire line, of course. It's also possible to use natural materials to spread a fire. Using a broom rake, perhaps, like a spaghetti fork, twirl some burning grasses or other material, then move it inside the line so that it ignites fresh fuel. If you're using a fusee, check beforehand to ensure that the cap is in place, the seal isn't broken, and that the fusee itself is intact. To ignite, strike away from your body with your face turned away. Use the fusee in a holder, such as a stick, so that it is close to the ground, and you have more control over the flaming materials it is emitting. A drip torch should also be inspected thoroughly before you go out on a run. Check gaskets, the condition of the wick, and that you have the fuel mixture that's correct for your department's regulations. When you're lighting a drip torch, check for proper fuel flow. Adjust your air vent if necessary. And then drop some of the fuel mixture on the ground on the inside of the fire line. Ignite the mixture on the ground. Then light the drip torch from the burning fuel. When you're using the drip torch, push it out in front of you. Don't drag it along beside or behind you. Don't burn an area greater than you can safely control. When you have to extinguish the drip torch, set it upright and close the air vent. Once the excess fuel has burned, but before the wick is dry, blow out the flame. If you need to refuel the drip torch, be very careful not to get any fuel on you. It not only can irritate your skin, but it can turn you into a larger version of your drip torch. The backpack tank comes in various styles. It can be highly effective as a means of cooling a hot spot just enough so that the other tools can more effectively fight the fire. As with the other tools, eye protection should be worn when using the backpack tank. Remember, the backpack tank can be emptied within minutes, and it may be a long way from a water source. So in order to justify carting it a few miles from the fire vehicle, the backpack tank should be used properly. Since it weighs 50 pounds or more, You should have assistance when putting it on, so that it is in the right position on your back. As you're walking along, your leading hand should be aiming the nozzle parallel to the fire line, while your rear hand pumps. Usually, you will want a spray pattern rather than a stream, because you will cover more area, effectively lowering fuel temperature, while generally using less water. Even if you don't have a backpack tank with an adjustable nozzle, you can always produce an adequate spray by covering part of the nozzle with your forefinger, as you would with a garden hose. If there are two backpack tanks in operation and both are about half full, empty one into the other, so you end up with one full one. Then the empty one is free to go for a refill. If you are able to refill your backpack tank from local sources, be sure filter screens are in place so that you don't clog the pump with foreign material. On that subject, don't drink water from a backpack tank or use it around your eyes. No matter what precautions you take, there is just too much opportunity for contamination to occur. During indirect attack on a fire, the backpack tank plays more of a patrol role rather than an active one. During direct attack on a fire, the makeup of the fire crew changes, and the role of the backpack tank is expanded. There are now backpack tanks at the head and end of the fire crew in a direct attack situation. The lead backpack tank uses a fine spray to cool the fire down, just enough so that the other tools can be brought into play. The use of the flapper, or fire swatter, as it is sometimes called, is not obvious from its name. In fact, with a flapper, you need to do anything but flap, because a flapping or beating action only supplies more oxygen to the fire and can easily spread the fire rather than suppress it. With the flapper, as with all other handled tools, you need to ensure the handle is solid, with no cracks or splinters. You also need to be sure that the head and handle are securely fastened and that the belting material is still pliable and intact. Correct use of a flapper requires good wrist action, as you keep the flapper moving over the active fire so that the oxygen level is decreased and the fire starves or is smothered. One thing to remember, though, is that belting material will catch on fire if it is not kept moving. Flappers work as a team, so work with the other flappers to cut off the flow of oxygen, lower the temperature, and smother the fire. Keep moving. The McCloud is a double-sided tool. The tine side is used like a council tool, and the hose side is used for digging cup trenches and scraping fire lines. In some areas, the McCloud may in fact replace the council tool. When you're building a line on a slope, take care that flaming fuel won't roll down the slope, cross the line, and ignite combustibles on the other side. Build a cup trench along the line if necessary. A small ridge of mineral soil on the low side of the line will help contain material that might roll down the slope. Once the incident commander or fire boss declares that a fire is contained, the crew begins their mop-up operation. A hose lay has now been set up, and using some of the same tools, the crew puts them to different uses to make the controlled fire safe. The tools are used for working fires out of stumps, or getting rid of anything flammable that might possibly provide fuel for the fire, should it rekindle. The unburned islands and pockets within the fire line are carefully ignited to prevent a recurrence of the fire and to produce a solid black line. Back at the station, the tools are taken care of first, for you cannot be sure when they will be needed again. Handles are checked to see if they are still solid and splinter-free. Anything that needs repair is set aside with a note describing its condition. Cutting tools are sharpened, cleaned, oiled. Drip torches are refilled. Expendables are restocked. Belting is checked on the flappers. Only after they have seen to their equipment can the crew relax a bit. They sit back with the crew boss and critique their performance.
I thought the crew did a real fine job keeping that fire out of the slice out there. We couldn't get equipment to it. Sure gets easier and easier after I was telling me, right? My hardest part was keeping the space between the eyes. I kept wondering, speed up and get right up on it. About that. Yeah. Is there any other ways, is there any other things that you felt that could have helped you do the job more effectively? You know, like was communications all right?
The kid we didn't say a little younger.
No matter how they begin, dedicated men and women like you will play a significant part in the way wildland fires end. No matter how sophisticated our technology may become, someone still has to go out with the right tools, meet the fire, and suppress it.